I think that we have three excellent panelists here who have been involved a lot in these issues before. If we start with you, Lorenzo. Okay. Lorenzo Fioramonti is the academic director of NATIVA campus and senior advisor to Ingenium Education. He's also the founding director of the Institute for Sustainability at the University of Surrey. And he's the former Minister of Education, University and Research in Italy. Those who have been with us last year can remember his really impressive speech. As a minister, he made Italy the first country in the world to teach sustainability education as a mandatory subject in all schools. So that was really an achievement. Lorenzo, you are among the best candidates to discuss the introduction based on your CV of the new study of well-being. So how would you compare to the attempt to establish the well-being master with this sustainability subject mandated in the Italian schools? So is there any comparisons? There are elementary schools in general, but here's the master meant for many professionals who can spread the knowledge around the world.
Yeah, there are similarities, and there is a crucial topic here that needs to be addressed. And I think it's been already mentioned in passing. Our education system is broken, completely broken. There's very little to salvage of it. We teach our children that the best way to survive is to compete. We tell them that excellence is to basically screw their neighbor, that the only thing that really matters is to get a job that will give you a lot of money because that's going to give you power, and then we expect them to behave like good citizens. I mean, it's a paradox. So we basically dope them, we train them to become sociopaths, and then we wonder why they do that. So that's why when I was a minister, I thought we need to fix this as quickly as possible. Now, you don't get a minister that does this on every day, so we were lucky enough that there was a window of opportunity, and Italy managed to revamp its civic education teaching and turn it into sustainability education. And it's now mandatory, and it's helping schools realize that they need to become boot camps of change makers rather than training academies of sociopaths, as I said. But I think what we can do with the well-being masters here is to do it the other way around, to start from university and try to permeate the minds of those that will become teachers. Mm-hmm. So I think one element I'd like to see in the masters is training possibilities for educators. We need teachers to think in a different way. We need them to be able to embrace the beliefs and the concepts and the principles of a well-being economy and then turn those into accessible, easy to understand concepts that can be taught in primary school. I think one issue that we have here is that our language, not always, don't get me wrong, Dora, not always, at times we do, but not always does it warm the hearts and minds of people. We need to find a language that we can use in schools, that we can use in the church, that we can use in the square, that we can use in that in associations, on TV, that we can use in the elevator when we go back home, you know, and we speak to our neighbor and maybe exchange a couple of views that can be meaningful. And I think that masters can help us identify the key theoretical and implementable principles that then can lead to that. So what I've seen, and I fundamentally believe, you know, when I was given the chance to be a Minister of Education, they gave it to me because no one wanted it, because they thought it was the Minister of the Poor, you know, like everyone wants to be a Minister of Finance or Development or Industry because there is money. And then they came to me and they said, you know what, whatever, you can get the Ministry of Education. And then I thought for a second, hold on, but the Minister of Education speaks to 8 million families on a daily basis. The Minister of Education has 1.5 million teachers as employees. I think that's pretty powerful as an army. If I can use that, you know, like strategically, I get to speak to the entire country directly. And I think that's the power of education. And as Nelson Mandela used to say, education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. And I think with this little but very innovative program, which is the first time in the world that someone develops a master's in well-being science, we can bring together the best we know. It can become a lab for innovation. And as I said, it could be something very useful to managers, entrepreneurs, policymakers, but also educators. I think we need an army of educators that will never again allow anyone to think that someone like Donald Trump, for instance, is a reasonable person to vote. I think we need to get to a point in which this is going to be met with a laughter and not with a landslide of support. You know, like we need to get to that level of education around the world in which certain behavior will no longer be condoned. Certain ideas will be ridiculed. And everyone will understand that being, focusing on well-being is in everyone's interest.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, Sandrine, I think, was the one who has brought yesterday the information that 50%, one half of America's population has the education at the level of the 6th grade of the primary school. That's what you're speaking about. Yeah.
Yes, the fact, again, when our education system breaks, doesn't deliver, we are simply building monsters. Yeah. And then the monsters come.
Yeah. Okay, so it's a very good, because you don't just speak, you influence practically. That's the main issue. Perfect. Hand here to Scherto. Scherto Gill is a professor of research and director of the Global Humanity and for Peace Institute. She has conducted many investigations in diverse areas such as educational innovation, intercultural experiences, peace building, post-conflict societies, collective healing, communal well-being, good governance, social transformation, a lot of everything. So Scherto, Wales, where you're coming from, is dedicated to well-being of future generations, and this act has been, I think, discussed all over the world. So how might universities contribute to this vision? How can you add from your research? What would be interesting here?
Yeah, good question. And hello, everyone. You probably heard heard voices from Wales yesterday, that Wales is dedicated to the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. Myself, this session is about breaking silos, building futures. So myself, I was at University of Sussex for a number of years before I came to University of Wales. For those of you who knew a little bit of Sussex in the UK, it was founded on the principle of interdisciplinary teaching, learning, research, and the collaboration. So during my time in Sussex, I also led a 3-year research into well-being. Okay, 2 sides. One side is on the conceptual side. How should we understand well-being? The other side is empirical. How do we explore people's lived experience of well-being of the course of life? From there, we became obsessed about well-being, and I was involved, and so you mentioned a number of domains. I was involved in education for well-being, and well-being as a positive piece, and well-being as the ethical compass of good governance. And most recently, for the last 5-6 years, I've been working in partnership with Mrs. Ramos at the UNESCO in looking at how we engage the whole communities to build just a society and a global well-being through the pathways of a collective healing and intergenerational collaboration. And that project is spreading in 15 countries across 4 continents. So what have we learned in this experience and the research processes in order to offer some insight into this master's program in Iceland? A number of things. The first is the imperative of understanding well-being holistically. You may think about well-being as a social construct. You may think about well-being as just good feelings. Other people may think about well-being from economic finance perspective. But it is really an imperative to look at well-being from the 3-fold aspects. The first aspect is we need to look at life as a whole. We look at life. Life has content. Human life and the life elsewhere has content, and that matters. So that's where our well-being lies, and that is the content of our life, the good life. The second domain within that 3-fold aspect is the conditions that allow well-being to arise. social conditions, structural conditions, cultural conditions, but also our own personal kind of awareness as a condition. So this is a second part, because that can help us build, enrich our well-being. The third part is actually, what do we do? If we know well-being what is well-being, what constitutes well-being, we know the social conditions or structural conditions, what do we do about it? It's the pathways, our collective pathway, the individual collective pathways towards well-being. These three things, it's threefold, it's a triangle. When we understand well-being, and in terms of the course, we have to bring that into the fore. When we do that, we actually focus on the primacy of well-being. Well-being will always be a central concern of the society. And that also is affirmation of the dignity of life, that inherent, intrinsic, valuable aspect of being human. That is, the life itself is valuable. And the life itself involving the lives of more than human. So together, this is really important. So that's number one imperative. The second imperative I have learned is that when we think about education, like Lorenzo just highlighted, the notion of well-being has to be the organizing principle. Mm-hmm. It's not just a subject. Mm-hmm. Tuesday afternoon, we have a well-being course. Mm-hmm. We have happiness class, we yoga class, where all that make us feel better so that we can endure this toxic system. Mm-hmm. We can somehow keep going because we have a little bit of input so that so-called resilience becomes just a coping mechanism. So when we actually use well-being as the organizing principle and the guiding principle, then everything we do is oriented towards that. So the third imperative, you may be surprised, is about questions. We stopped asking questions. We stopped actually questioning anything at all. We became passive recipient of good recipes, of good this and that. Someone is always telling us something. Whereas today, especially in the context of AI, and Mrs. Ramos talked about the ethics of AI, in the concept that AI is going to drive forward everything. So it is our task, with university's task, to think that yet to be thought. And how can we think the yet to be thought? It requires good questions. What is a good question? The kind of question that transforms the way we think. The kind of, Lorenzo talked about, a whole nation of people will vote for the least possible candidate, represents a epistemological vulnerability. We are vulnerable in today's world precisely because the educational process makes us all vulnerable. We're talking about not vulnerable, we're talking about poverty, not talking about it. It's the whole system breed us into means to an end. Yesterday, Philippa on the stage and say, but we are not means to an end. We are the being who will take a collective responsibility to build a better world. So to bring these three elements, the understanding of well-being, the second is using well-being to frame education as a whole. Thirdly, to have this kind of a capacity for collective inquiry. I put on the table of our program that is MA in Peace Studies. So that is an illustration. And one element that I shared with the colleagues in Iceland, Icelandic University yesterday is, we tend to think we know the truth, we know the answers, we impart it to students. Today's young people are not like that. Today's young people, when the reason that young people want to stick on the phone is there is nothing better for them to do. What if we engage them? So today's young people want to be part of the co-creator of any courses you would develop. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Scherto. Another applause. Thank you so much. Another great Another great thought. So yeah, it's really about how do we understand, how comprehensive can we be? Do we have enough multidisciplinary competencies in ourselves if we want at the academic level collaborate and so on. So we have heard two excellent professors, and now we have somebody whom we can still consider as the user of such programs. So Alina is with us. Alina Garofil, she's currently a project manager at the Romanian non-governmental organization that looks at health, education, environment, and society, and how they are interlinked. She's a lecturer in nursing, and her extensive background in healthcare, policy, and education reflects a strong passion and deep commitment to improve well-being at individual and societal levels. She's also the Joint Action PreventNCD Youth Advisory Group member. So Alina, we have heard a lot from 2 days, I think, and from Lorenzo and from Scherto. So what resonates most in those well-being and education discussions with the generations somewhere below 30? What would really mean something? What would attract students to join such a program?
So thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I know it's quite late, and thank you for bearing with us and still being here. So I'll get straight to the point, and I will say I think one of the aspects that is very important for young people is to be listened to. And this morning we had Madam President of Iceland saying about CEOs and their daughters, and this reminded me of a story that I read recently in a book about a CEO who was ready to share his knowledge and everything he had with his daughter that was a teenager and was approaching college. And he invited her to go to a dinner, a fancy dinner, fancy restaurant, got all ready for that. He went there with her, and he started talking to her, started sharing his experiences, but he saw that she was not really interacting with him. She was distracted, kind of annoyed about the situation, and he kept on talking to her, keep on lecturing her and getting a little bit more and more annoyed at the situation as well. And at one point he had enough. And he turned to his daughter and he was like, "Why are you not listening to me? I am sharing with you this important information. I'm trying to make you see what is important in life, and you're not listening." And she looked at him and said, "How can I listen to someone who cannot even match his own socks?" So that moment, of course, you can say that this is a fashion statement, but it was not for the CEO. The idea was that he realized at that moment that he talked too much and not let her talk and what she wanted it. He shared his experience, but not let her share the valuable things she wants to learn in life. And I think this is very important when we are talking about young people, that we let them tell us about what their needs are. And also, going back to what Lorenzo was saying about educator, I think it's a great opportunity for young people to become educators in their own communities. So it's not just about educating your peers, it's also about educating your elders sometimes, and bringing it together as a community. And I think this is really what resonates with young people.
Mm-hmm. And go maybe back to storytelling, wisdom sharing. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I think that resonates quite well with you, Scherto, and with co-creation of such programs. Would you like to comment a bit on that?
Yeah, that's really interesting. We have recently worked with young people to understand their needs for leadership and for facilitating transformative change in the community. It's really interesting. It's the first time we as a researcher engage young people as co-researcher. And for those of you who are actually within academia, you should try that. It's just absolutely amazing is not enough. It's awesome. It was just awesome. We have young people, one from each continent, and they host focus group, just awesome. What we have learned from these young people is said, look, you're working for well-being futures, but we're already here. The future is here. We're here, so that's the starting point. Then he says, why there's no mechanism from day one, since we were a child until today? There's just no listening. There's no mechanism, no systemic, no institutional spaces to listen to us. Don't always talk to us, with us. So yesterday, Baroness Scotland was talking about the collaboration, multilateral collaboration. And the young people were saying that the future actually requires something, and that's missing in all the kind of learning experience. That's the arts of listening, dialogue, and inquiry. These are arts. It's not like you sit together, then you know how to dialogue. It's not sit together, you know how to think together. And this is it's a form of art, and it's developed from beginning. But our parents, our teachers, our elders, our leaders, they are the opposite, the antithesis to dialogue, listening, and inquiry.
Yeah, there we are. And yesterday, I think it was a very nice, somebody said that we usually listen to compose the answer, not listen to hear what was said. So listening, learn how to listen is really an art, I would say. Yes, thank you so much for sharing that experience, research experience too. So Lorenzo, if I may go back to you, because maybe just to explain that what we are doing in Joint Action PreventNCD, which is where this Wellbeing Economy Forum is somehow embedded for the 4 years' time. It has started before, and hopefully it will go really flourishing further after the project ends, and within the project, what can we benefit from it? So the forum itself is in the project, and we are trying to somehow develop it as in the most sustainable way. But also, Dora and the team here in Iceland, they have came up with the idea that also a master could be the sustainability outcome of our effort. So, but we are speaking about one master in one country at, 3 universities together, but we have how many million people in Europe, if we don't speak about that? So how do you see that? You have some political experiences, you are quite out-of-the-box thinker. If somebody's coming to you and saying, you have one master, we are developing it, we would like to develop it best possible, that it could be picked up in the other countries, in the other environments, that we can somehow, through the mechanisms of the European Union, spread it around. What do we have to know here? What do we have to think about?
You see, I think that the biggest obstacle to the expansion and success of the well-being economy is the fact that you can hardly see it, right? So a lot of people have been telling me, this concept came up more than 10 years ago, and there are times when I look at it and I think like, my gosh, I hate it, For 10 years, they said, great ideas, but where can I see it? We need things that work. We need a master's program that is well done, that is co-produced. Please don't make the mistake of thinking that simply teaching well-being is the way to go. We need to really involve our users in co-producing it. We cannot have education consumers anymore. That's the distortion of this form of economic system that believes that everyone is a consumer in one way or another. We're a consumer at the mall, we're a consumer at school. So with users, and so that it works. And if it works in a country that has embedded those principles, and you start seeing how people reason differently, how companies behave differently because they have attended that masters, and because they have become better entrepreneurs, I'm telling you, it's going to spread like a positive virus. It's going to become, emulation is a powerful political tool. And all that leaders need to show is good examples. Up until now, we have struggled to find good examples. We have nice books, we have academics that give lectures, but it's hard to touch it. So that's why we need these tools like a Wellbeing Masters that works in a country that has embedded those principles with businesses that can tell you, look, you see what you learn in that Masters? You can actually practice here because we want that to happen. We do it every day. Come and work with us. I'm telling you, there is going to be a pilgrimage of European policymakers, European companies coming to Iceland for a few days, learning how that works to be able to go back home. We need to create that holistic sense of possibility that is at this stage still missing. And when that happens, it will be emulation, it will be passive emulation, it will be a lot of proactive dissemination done by many of us and those that will join the cause, and it will spread. There is, let me tell you, there is a fundamental sense of discomfort around the world, everywhere. I lived 20 years in Africa, and I can tell you, rich countries, poor countries, so-called rich and so-called poor. There is the same sense of discomfort. Once a friend told me, and I think this should be put in like as a headline almost on every TV program. He said, what I find so irrational is that not only we're screwing up the planet, but we're not having any fun while we do it. I mean, like, how is it possible that we're having a mental crisis while we should be, at least if we had so much fun, at least if we had such a great life, I would say, you know what, it's worth screwing it up the planet. We'll be like the best generation that has ever lived on this planet and potentially the last one. But we're not even the happiest one. That Gen Z, by the way, the other day there was a report cited also on the FT that said that Gen Z has flattened the happiness curve. There's never been in historical surveys a generation that is as unhappy as the current one. So we're doing something so wrong, and there is just a hunger for something different, but we need to be able to touch it. Ideas will not change the world. It's the practices that make a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. You know, I was thinking a lot about this well-being, and I agree here with Dora when we discussed it. It's not just well-being economy. Probably we are speaking about well-being policies, well-being actions, because if we are addressing just economic capital, probably we are not getting that far as if we are also addressing social capital, cultural capital, environmental capital. And then it brings me to the thought, because at the moment we are right now, again for the third time in the last few years, fighting for the school meals policy in Slovenia, which was established somewhere in the 1960s. And the main idea was not only to feed children, specifically those with lower socioeconomic status families, but to give the women opportunity to go to the labor market with the same freedom as men, because the children were so well cared in kindergartens and schools. And also the school kitchen has a lot of activities within the cross-curricular. It means they cook what the teachers teach during history, during geography. They can learn to cook. They have school gardens. They visit together the farms. The farmers are visiting the schools and school kitchens. And so a lot of functions there. So for me, that's a well-being policy, a pure one. But at the moment, we have some attempts that this policy would be changed, and caterings, some private caterings would take it over, which means probably all the rest except the economic capital would be left out. And because of the profits and constant economic growth principle, immediately the quality would go down. So we have that in our space. We have plenty of that, but we just don't think it's there. We just should go and search a bit for it.
That's the reason why well-being economy is so revolutionary, because it brings well-being into the most vicious aspect of social organization. Yeah. If you manage to instill well-being into the heads of economists, of entrepreneurs, and of the market, the rest is downhill. So if we manage to do that, then the rest is going to be happening much more quickly.
Yeah, and that's why you became the minister, because you valued the social capital and the cultural capital. You gave them the value, not just the economic one as a financial minister. So that's also the case. Okay, so maybe, Alina, I just wanted to say, what then would be, for instance, the main driver for decision that you would go for such a course? What would be for you as a young person? You are just there searching the web, not knowing exactly what you want to do, and then you spot the well-being master. What would that be?
I will not pretend that I will speak for every young person. I will just speak from personal experience. And what has worked for me when I wanted to enter education is really finding something that gives me meaningful purpose. That meaning that I can bring a positive outcome to my community. I can show through my actions that they are making an impact of what we're doing. And I think also it's about really finding the skills, the practical skills that can really resolve these real life situations, because we are dealing with food safety, we are dealing with social, economic changes, and so on and so forth. So it's very important when you get to choose a course to look at things like critical thinking, future thinking, but also new technologies that can be embedded in the teaching methods, and how we can use them for our own well-being, because everything comes from inside out. So we can use ChatGPT for something positive, or we can use it for something that's not that positive. So it's all about the choices we make every day, and that really drives forward what we want to do with our lives. And I don't believe that life is a singular linear pathway. It's more bumps and cracks, and I think all of us are just trying to get over them and just live a more meaningful life, really.
Excellent, excellent answer to that question, I think, from the youth perspective. So the last 1-minute question to everybody. If we are here as the advisors to the organizers, creators of this new master, what would be the key advice for them? What to do that this master would be really useful and would be so attractive that other countries would be willing to go, other universities in the countries would be willing to go with that? Who would like to start?
I can do that. A few things. University used to be the place where you achieve elitism. You became a part of the elite, because today the world is still so much subject, all of us, to structural injustice. To such extent, we become complicit. Whether there is poverty, whether there is war, whether there is environmental degradation, we are part of that, even though we're not consciously knowing that we're doing it, but we're complicit to all these violation of our dignity. And so how do we actually use this course of this program as an entry point, so that we actually have an entire transformation of what education should be? A couple of things. One is, how do we not create a separate space, but more of a bring university to the community? So how could we do that? We could include a research element to the MA. So all the participants of the MA will bring their community, their voice of a community, everyone they're concerned of, into the program, have a research element. The other is this. We are not, within educational institutions, especially university, we are not a knower. We don't own knowledge. So education can't be transactional, but has to be relational and transformational. So that means that it's not about someone educate others, but more of let's build a learning community, coming together, share voice, share ideas, and so through the new community, we transform the world.
That's great. Lorenzo, what would be your advice?
My advice would be bold, be controversial, and make it focused on practice, which means get policymakers to teach, get corporate leaders to teach, to come and learn, and give a sense that if you are attending that course, you're going to be accessing a world of innovators. People have to get a sense that that master's program becomes a gateway to a new economy. By doing that, you're going to get in contact and get access to a lot of great people that are making change happen every day.
Okay, perfect. I think that you are entering to the same field from different angles, but resonates quite well. Alina, for the students, what would be really beneficial?
I think it will be very beneficial for them to get their curiosity stimulated and also becoming part of something bigger, like a community, and feeling that they are active actors in that community, not just passive learners. This reminds me of an interesting quote we have in Romania, which is that we don't learn for school, we learn for life.
Thank you.
Okay.
So,
old wisdom, just a bit redressed for the new circumstances. Thank you so much. So thank you so much to the panelists.